Day 1. You are 22 years old. You have just decided to invest $10 a day, every day, for the rest of your life, and it feels, honestly, like the most pointless decision you have ever made. It's a Monday, and you move $10 into a simple index fund, a fund that quietly owns a piece of the biggest companies in the country, and then you sit there and look at the number. And the number is nothing. $10. The price of a sandwich, a single coffee, and a tip. You could not buy a used bicycle with it, let alone a future. And the small voice in your head that keeps most people from ever starting says exactly what it says to everyone. That this is a waste of time, that $10 a day will never amount to anything. That you would be better off spending it on something you can actually enjoy today. And that voice is wrong, catastrophically, expensively wrong. But you have no way of knowing that yet, because on day 1, the truth of what you have just started is completely invisible. This is the first thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. The reason almost no one does it is that at the beginning, it looks like it cannot possibly work. The amount is too small to feel meaningful, the growth is too slow to see. And every instinct you have screams that something this tiny cannot possibly change your life. But you have just quietly done the single most powerful thing an ordinary person can do with money. Not because $10 is a lot. It is not. But because you have started a machine that runs on a force most people never respect until it is too late. The force of a small thing repeated across a very long time. You cannot see it working. It is working anyway. And notice what the $10 actually is, because this is the part that matters more than the number. It is not really an investment yet. It is a decision. A small vote you just cast for a version of yourself that builds instead of spends, that thinks in decades instead of weekends, that treats the future as something you fund rather than something that simply happens to you. That identity, the person who invests, is worth more than the $10 1,000 times over, because the $10 will be repeated tomorrow and the day after. And every repetition is the same quiet vote, cast again, until one day it is simply who you are. You close the app. Nothing feels different. You are $10 poorer and, though you cannot feel it, immeasurably richer than you were this morning. Because today you started, and starting is the part almost no one ever does. The verb at level 1 is begin. You begin with an amount so small it feels like a joke. Beginning at this level is the hardest step in the entire journey. Not because it takes money, it takes almost none, but because it takes faith in something you cannot yet see. The willingness to plant a seed, so small you have to trust it will become a tree. Year 5. You are 27 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 5 years straight. And you have arrived at the most dangerous moment in the entire journey, the moment where it feels like it is not working. 5 years in, your account holds around $22,000. And here is where almost everyone quits, because $22,000. After 5 years of discipline, of moving that $10 every single day, of skipping the small things other people bought, feels underwhelming. You did the math in your head when you started, $10 a day, a few thousand a year. And 5 years later the balance is not much more than what you put in, and the returns, the magic you were promised, seem barely there. This is the plateau, the long flat stretch at the start of every compounding curve, where the growth is real but small, where the snowball is still tiny, where nothing about the numbers screams that anything extraordinary is coming. And it is precisely here, in this boring, unrewarding, invisible middle, that the vast majority of people give up and go back to spending, convinced it does not work. And the temptation to stop is everywhere, because you can see, all around you, the people who are not doing this. They took their $10 and bought the thing, the dinner, the gadget, the weekend away. And they seem, in the moment, to be enjoying life more than you are. You watch them and the doubt sharpens. What if they are right? What if you are denying yourself for a payoff that never comes? This is the exact psychological trap that empties most accounts before they ever grow. The visible pleasure of spending set against the invisible, silent, unglamorous work of compounding. And in a straight fight between something you can feel now and something you cannot see yet, the thing you can feel almost always wins. This is the second thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. The early years are a test, and the test is boredom. Compounding is backloaded, which means almost all of the reward comes at the end, and almost all of the difficulty comes at the beginning. And this mismatch is the single greatest reason people fail to build wealth. They quit in the flat part of the curve, right before it bends. They mistake the slow start for a broken engine, when in truth the engine is working perfectly, just quietly, building the base that everything later will stand on. The people who become wealthy are not smarter than the people who quit. They are simply the ones who kept going through the boring years, who trusted the math when the math was not yet impressive. You keep going. You do not feel rich. You feel, mostly, like nothing is happening. Everything is happening. You just cannot see it yet. The verb at level 2 is persist. You persist through the flat and boring years when it looks like nothing is working. Persisting at this level is where the whole thing is won or lost, because the curve has not bent yet. And only the people who keep feeding it through the dull years are still there when it finally does. Year 10. You are 32 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 10 years, and for the first time, you can see it, the thing you were promised, beginning to happen. Your account now holds around $58,000. And here is the moment something shifts, not just in the number, but in your understanding. Over 10 years, you personally put in about $36,000, $10 at a time. But the account holds $58,000, which means something other than you added $22,000 to your life. Quietly, while you slept, while you worked, while you forgot the account existed. That extra money is the return, the growth, the market paying you for your patience. And for the first time, it is not a rounding error. It is real money, more than half a year of many people's salaries, and none of it came from your labor. You are watching, with your own eyes, money begin to make money, and once you have seen it, you can never unsee it. Sit with what that actually means, because it is stranger than it sounds. There is now a second earner in your household, and it never sleeps, never complains, never takes a day off, and works for you every hour of every night. It earned $22,000 while you were living your life, and unlike your own labor, its work compounds. Because the money it earns is added to the pile and immediately put to work earning more. You spent 10 years hiring this tireless, invisible worker $10 at a time, and it has finally grown large enough to start pulling real weight. And from here it only gets stronger, while you do nothing but keep feeding it the same small daily wage. This is the third thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. There is a moment, usually somewhere around a decade in, when the growth of your money starts to outpace your contributions. And it changes everything about how you see the world. Before this point, you were the engine, your discipline was doing the work. After this point, the machine takes over, and your money starts pulling more weight than your deposits do. This is the turning of the tide. The moment compounding stops being a word in a video and becomes a force in your actual life, and every year from here, the gap between what you put in and what you have grows wider, in your favor, faster and faster, for the rest of your life. You look at the number and feel something new, which is belief. It is working. It was always working. Now, finally, you can see it. The verb at level 3 is compound. It compounds, and for the first time the growth outruns your effort. Compounding at this level is the moment the tide turns, when your money begins to earn more than you contribute, and the quiet force you could not see for a decade finally steps into the light. Year 20. You are 42 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 20 years, and the curve you could not see at the start has begun, unmistakably, to bend. Your account now holds around $200,000. Stop and feel the shape of that. It took you 10 years to reach 58,000. It took only 10 more to add another 150,000 on top of it. The growth is no longer linear, no longer a steady climb. It is accelerating, curving upward, each year adding more than the year before, because the returns are now earning returns of their own, stacking on top of each other in a way that gets visibly faster every single year. You still put in the same $10 a day you always did. Nothing about your contribution changed. But the machine is bigger now, and a bigger machine throws off more. And you are beginning to understand, in your gut and not just on paper, what people mean when they say compounding is the most powerful force in finance. This is the fourth thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. The growth is not a straight line. It is a curve, and the curve is deceptive, because it is nearly flat for years, and then it bends upward with a speed that feels almost unfair. 20 years in, you are on the part of the curve where it starts to climb steeply, where the numbers begin to move faster than your intuition expects, where the account gains more in a good year than you contribute in several. And the wildest part is that the steepest, most dramatic growth is still ahead of you, because on an exponential curve, the biggest jumps always come last. You are not near the finish. You are near the place where it finally gets exciting. And something shifts in how you carry yourself in the world, quietly. Underneath everything. $200,000 growing on its own is not yet freedom, but it is the first solid floor you have ever stood on. A cushion thick enough that a lost job or a bad month no longer feels like the edge of a cliff. You make decisions a little differently now, from a place of options rather than fear, and you begin to understand that the real product of all this patience was never just the number. It was the person the number let you become. Calmer, steadier, harder to shake, because you know that quietly, in the background, the machine is still running. You check the balance more often now. You cannot help it. For the first time, the number is climbing fast enough that watching it is genuinely thrilling. The verb at level 4 is accelerate. It accelerates, the curve bending upward faster every year. Accelerating at this level means watching your returns begin to earn returns of their own, and feeling the growth shift from a slow climb into something that visibly picks up speed. With the steepest part still to come. Year 30. You are 52 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 30 years, and the snowball you started with a single handful of snow is now enormous. And rolling faster than you ever imagined it could. Your account now holds around $600,000. Look at what just happened. In your third decade of investing, the account did not add another $150,000. It added nearly $400,000, more in 10 years than in the previous 20 combined. This is what people mean when they say the magic happens at the end. The same boring $10 a day, the same simple fund, the same discipline you have kept for 30 years, is now producing gains so large that your annual returns dwarf your annual contributions many times over. You are barely relevant to your own wealth now. The money is doing the work. Almost all of it, and it is doing it faster every year. A snowball so large that it gathers more in a single roll than you added in years of pushing. This is the fifth thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. The final stretch of a compounding curve does not just grow, it explodes. Because exponential growth pours most of its reward into the last third of the journey. The person who quit at year 5 saw almost nothing. The person who quit at year 15 missed this entirely. The vertical part, the part that actually makes you wealthy. And the difference between them and you is not talent, not income, not luck. It is only that you stayed. That you kept feeding the same small amount into the same machine long enough to reach the years where compounding stops crawling and starts to soar. Time was the whole secret. You just had to give it enough of it. You realize, with something like awe, that you are going to be genuinely wealthy, and that you did it with an amount of money almost anyone could have set aside. You just did the one thing they did not. You waited, and you think, sometimes, about the versions of your friends who could have been standing exactly where you stand. The ones who make far more than you ever did, who earn bigger salaries and bought nicer things, and who have almost nothing set aside because they never started or started and quit in the boring years. Income was never the thing that separated you from them. You watched some of them earn triple what you earned and arrive at this same age with a fraction of your security, and the only real difference between your life and theirs was a small, dull, daily habit that any of them could have kept and simply did not. The verb at level 5 is snowball. It snowballs, gathering more in a single year now than you once added in many. Snowballing at this level is the vertical climb, the explosive final third where compounding pours out most of its reward, and where the people who stayed are separated forever from the people who quit. Year 40. You are 62 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 40 years, and you are, by any definition, a millionaire. Your account now holds around $1.6 million. And now for the number that should be shown in every school in the country. Over those 40 years, the total amount you personally contributed, $10 at a time, day after day, was about $146,000. That is what came out of your pocket. $146,000. The other $1.5 million, the vast majority of your entire fortune, was created by compounding, by the market, by time, by money making money for 4 decades. You provided a little over 1/10 of your wealth. The force you started on day one, the one that looked so pointless, provided the rest. You did not get rich by earning a fortune. You got rich by starting a small engine and refusing, for 40 years, to turn it off. This is the sixth thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day. When you arrive, you discover that you did far less of the work than you imagined, and time did far more. The wealth was not built by the size of your contributions, which were tiny, but by the length of your patience, which was enormous. This is the great, quiet, almost unfair secret of building money. That the most important ingredient is not how much you make or how clever you are, but how long you are willing to let the machine run untouched. You became a millionaire on the price of a coffee a day, not because the coffee money was ever the point, but because you gave it 40 years. And 40 years is what turns a trickle into a fortune. You sit with the number. $1.6 million from $10 a day. It should feel impossible. It is, instead, just arithmetic. The arithmetic almost no one has the patience to let finish. And there is a strange grief mixed into the triumph. Because you realize how available this was to almost everyone, and how few ever take it. There was no secret. There was no gate. The path you walked was open the entire time, marked clearly, requiring no special talent and almost no money, and still the vast majority of people walked right past it, because it asked for the one thing human beings find hardest to give, which is patience without proof. You did not outsmart anyone. You simply believed the arithmetic when it was boring and kept believing it long enough to watch it come true. The verb at level 6 is arrive. You arrive, a millionaire, on an amount almost anyone could have spared. Arriving at this level means discovering that time did most of the work and you did surprisingly little, and that the true price of wealth was never the money. It was the patience to wait for the math to finish. Year 50. You are 72 years old. You have invested $10 a day for 50 years. And the thing you started as a broke 22-year-old has become something that will outlive you. Your account now holds around $4.2 million. In the last 10 years alone, it grew by more than $2.5 million, more in that single decade than in the entire 40 years before it. Because that is what the very end of an exponential curve looks like, almost vertical, almost unbelievable. And now the wealth has crossed a threshold that changes its whole meaning. It is no longer just about you, your retirement, your comfort. It is enough to change your children's lives, and your grandchildren's, enough to become the thing your family never had, a foundation. A head start, generational wealth, born from nothing more than $10 a day and a patience that lasted half a century. The snowball no longer needs you at all. It could roll on for generations, feeding people you will never meet, all of them standing on a decision you made on an ordinary Monday when the whole thing felt like a joke. This is the seventh thing nobody tells you about investing $10 a day, and it is the one that reframes everything. Given enough time, compounding does not just make you wealthy. It outgrows you entirely, becoming a force that can carry your family for generations after you are gone. The $10 was never really about the $10. It was about starting something that mathematics would carry further than your own life, planting a tree whose shade would fall on people not yet born. And here, at the end, is the truth underneath all 7 stages. The single most powerful wealth-building force available to an ordinary person was never a high salary, or a brilliant investment, or a lucky break. It was time, and the humility to respect it, and the patience to let it work. You had that force available to you every single day of your life. The only question that ever mattered was whether you would begin. You think back, from here, to that 22-year-old staring at $10, so sure it was pointless. And you wish you could reach through the years and tell him what you know now, that the number in front of him was never the point. That he was not really investing money at all. He was buying time, decades of it, the one thing that could never be earned back once it was spent. He almost did not start. He almost listened to the voice. And everything that came after, the millions, the security, the family it will carry. All of it turned on a single ordinary morning when a broke young man decided, against every instinct, to plant the seed anyway. The verb at level 7 is endure. It endures, outliving your contributions, outliving even you. Enduring at this level means watching a tiny daily habit grow into something generational, a fortune that rolls on after you are gone, and understanding, finally, that the greatest force in all of finance was the one thing you were given for free, which was time. So let's pull this together. At day 1, you begin with an amount so small it feels like a joke, and starting is the part almost no one manages. At year 5, you persist through the flat and boring years where it looks like nothing is working and most people quit. At year 10, it compounds. And for the first time, the growth of your money outruns the money you put in. At year 20, it accelerates, the curve bending upward faster every single year. At year 30, it snowballs, gathering more in 1 year than you once added in many. At year 40, you arrive, a millionaire, having contributed only a small fraction of your own fortune. At year 50, it endures, growing into something generational that outlives your contributions and even you. Here is the thing nobody on YouTube will tell you about investing $10 a day. The secret of building wealth was never income, or brilliance, or timing the market, or finding the one stock that changes everything. It was time and consistency, and the almost unbearable patience to do a tiny, boring thing for so long that mathematics takes over and does the rest. $10 a day is the price of a coffee, an amount so small it feels pointless, and that feeling of pointlessness is exactly why almost no one does it, and exactly why the few who do end up wealthy. The magic was never in the $10. It was in the decades. The cruelest, most beautiful truth in all of finance is that the single most important ingredient in building wealth is the one thing you cannot buy, rush, or hustle your way around, which is time in the market. Now, in fairness, a word of honesty about the numbers. These figures assume roughly the long-run historical average return of the broad stock market, which is not promised, will never arrive in a smooth line, and will include crashes along the way that will terrify you and tempt you to quit at the worst possible moment. Inflation will also quietly reduce what that final number can actually buy. This is the mathematics of compounding, not a guarantee, and it is not personal advice about your life. But the underlying principle that small amounts invested consistently over decades grow into life-changing sums is about as close to a law as personal finance has, even when the exact figure moves. The crashes are the price of admission. The people who stay invested through them are the ones who are still there when the curve finally bends. So if you are young, understand what you are holding, the one advantage no amount of money can buy, time, oceans of it, and every year you wait is a year subtracted from the most powerful end of the curve. Start today with $10, with $5, with whatever you can, because the habit matters more than the amount and the years matter more than everything. And if you feel it is too late, starting in your 40s or 50s, hear this. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best is today, and it is not a distant second. Because even a shorter run of compounding beats a lifetime of waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The seed was always small. The only thing that ever mattered was planting it and leaving it alone long enough to become a tree. It's a Monday, and somewhere a 22-year-old is moving $10 into a simple fund for the very first time. Staring at a number so small it feels absurd, listening to the little voice that tells almost everyone that this is pointless, that $10 a day will never amount to anything. They do not yet know that this ordinary Monday is one of the most important days of their financial life. They do not know that the tiny, boring, invisible thing they just did, if they simply keep doing it and leave it alone, will quietly grow past 20,000, past 100,000, past a million, into something that could outlive them and carry a family they have not yet started. They think $10 is nothing. It is, in fact, a seed. And the only thing standing between that seed and a fortune is time and the patience to let it pass. The journey has 7 stages, and the first 6 are just waiting in different disguises. Begin, persist, compound, accelerate, snowball, arrive. And the 7th is the one that lasts longer than you do, because the greatest force in finance was never money at all. It was time, offered free to everyone, and claimed by almost no one. If this video changed how you think about money and time, hit subscribe. We have more videos like this on the channel, each one pulling apart a piece of how wealth is actually built, underneath the noise we are usually sold. See you in the next one.